In season 1 of Parental Guidance, I created a bit of a national controversy. There were national news articles written in some of the online publications about one line in particular that I shared.
Hudson, did you throw your thong at him?
Yeah.
Can you look at him and apologise?
Sorry for throwing myself. Okay.
All right, it doesn't make it better if both of you do it to each other. All right? All right, let's go. Come on.
I want to say something kind of provocative. Forcing children to apologise is teaching children to lie.
Oh, controversy.
Today, we're talking about whether or not we should be making our kids apologise when they do the wrong thing to us, to their peers, to their siblings, or maybe they just, break something in the house. They're really emotional about it. Should we be making our kids apologise?
Whenever you ask this question, I go straight back to a story that you've told multiple times that just so clearly depicts this in action.
This is the one where I fought with my sister in the kitchen. Yes?
Yes.
All right. Should I tell it?
Tell it.
I'm about 15 years old. I've got a lot of bad attitude. My sister is 4 years younger than me. She's therefore about 11. In our home, we didn't watch Neighbours or Home and Away or The Simpsons because of all the bad attitude in the characters and the relationships.
You clearly didn't need any extra.
I don't think it made any difference whether we watched it or not. I had a bad relationship with my sister, okay? And we also didn't use words like stupid in our house. That was the S word. And I got really cranky with my sister in the kitchen one day, and I called her not just stupid, I called her a stupid idiot.
Double whammy.
So Mum heard it. She was in the living room. She came into the kitchen, said, Justin, we don't speak like that in this home. You need to apologise to your sister. She literally forced an apology out of her 15-year-old son who had a bad attitude. And so in apologising to my sister for calling her a stupid idiot, I literally said, fine, Karina, I'm sorry you're a stupid idiot. So Mum said,
I know it's really bad. I'm laughing, but it's just this is why I love this story. When I think about the times where I have been forced to make an apology, whether it be by a real life enforcer or my own internal enforcer.
Yeah.
When I feel like I'm supposed to do this, it leaves me in a victim mentality because I've been done wrong by. It's got nothing to do with me. This is all about the other person. So all my focus and energy is on what a stupid idiot, in your words, the other person is for hurting me or doing wrong by me, right? I don't learn anything through the process because I'm not doing any internal thinking. I'm not looking at how I might have contributed to this situation. It is all about the other person.
Yeah.
But on top of that, if I'm being enforced by somebody else, not only does it rupture my relationship with the person I'm saying sorry to, because I don't believe that I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
And it's their fault that now I'm in trouble.
That's exactly right. It ruptures my relationship with the person, and in this case, an adult and a child, it ruptures my relationship with them. And on top of that, that whole process, if I'm not a 15-year-old teenage boy with heaps of attitude and I'm more of a timid person, what I learned through the process is that in order to make life pleasant for everybody else, I need to please other people.
I like the words that you use, the external enforcer or the internal enforcer. I wasn't going to talk about this till you use these phrases, but I want to go back to something that I wrote in the most important parenting book that I believe exists on the planet. It's called The Parenting Revolution. I wrote it a couple of years ago, and I just wish every parent could read it. In that book, I talk about a motivation continuum. And at the very shallow end of motivation, no one wants to swim in shallow motivational waters, right? You want to be in the deep water where you have fun. But at the very shallow end is this thing called extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is when you do something because somebody else is making you do it, either because you're going to get a reward or a punishment. So a forced apology in that instance is literally an extrinsic enforcer. But you also use the term internal enforcer. The next level of motivation on this motivation continuum is called introjected motivation. Now, I know I'm getting a bit sciencey, but that's precisely what's going on here. No one's making you apologize. You're doing it because you feel like you have to. There's an internal police officer who's sort of berating you. It's your conscience saying, you've got to do it, but you're not there yet. Morally or mentally or psychologically, you're just not there. And so the apology gets spat across the room. The apology does not come across as sincere, and neither you nor the person receiving the apology feel like hugging at the end of this and saying, oh, yeah, everything's all better now. So glad I got the apology.
And while I sit in that space, though, what actually happens is I feel more and more justified to be angry and hurt.
Right. And then, of course, they get the apology. They get the apology that's been spat across the room, and they think, I was right to do that to them in the first place because they're really that sort of a person.
That's exactly right. And so what happens is, instead of me actually feeling soft and kind towards that person, my anger and my resentment builds.
Okay. Now, I want to add some nuance here. I think that we both sit on the same side of the fence on this one. Forced apologies are generally ineffective. However, I want to lean on some research and a little bit of, an alternative view. There's this thing called theory of mind. I've talked about it a lot on the podcast. It develops in children somewhere around 4 or 5 or 6. In fact, recent research suggests that it might be later. It might be around 7 or even 8. And there is some research that shows that when an under 7 child receives an apology, regardless of how they receive it, they're actually pretty good with it. They're like, okay, good, they apologize. Now, if the apology is really explicitly forced, if it's a really unkind apology,
like your one,
then even under 7s don't tend to take to them very well. But as a general rule, if you haven't got theory of mind, that is, if you're a parent of very young children, and they do the wrong thing, you could probably say you need to apologize, and they will spit an apology out at their sibling, and everything will actually be okay. So I just want to acknowledge that, because the research there, kids under 7 really do just want to hear sorry, whether it's a prompted apology or whether it's a spontaneous apology. It is usually going to help the relationship. As they develop more cognitive capacity from about the age of 6 or 7 onwards, those prompted apologies become less and less meaningful, particularly when it's quite clear, quite obvious that this is not an intrinsically motivated apology. That is, it's an introjected or an externally prompted apology.
So then my question is, before the age of 6, should we be encouraging our kids to apologise?
So I'm going to just say no. I mean, I think it's a pretty low stakes conversation, honestly. When you're talking about the younger kids, I really think it's low stakes. If you want to, fine, do it.
Fine
if you have to. But you're not setting yourself up for success later, because then you kind of get in this habit, this pattern where you think this is the way it should be. And as the kids do get older and develop more cognitive capacity and complexity, the apologies become a little bit more tricky and you don't know where to go. So I just think with these things, start early and it gets easier.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking this through, right? You've got children, they're young, they don't harbour resentment the same way we do.
Correct.
So asking them or encouraging them to apologise, like you said, it's low stakes. There's not a huge amount in it. But as they get to that point where you can start to see there's a sticking point, isn't that the perfect time to then start to have conversations around, in the past, mummy's asked you to apologise. I can tell you're actually still really, really angry about this. What should we do?
This is where we move further into deeper motivational waters along that motivational continuum that I wrote about in the Parenting Revolution. We're moving into identified or integrated motivation. So identified motivation is where you say, yeah, I can see the value in it. Integrated is where you say, this is pretty much who I am as a person. I'm a person who wants to repair and make amends. See, this argument that we should be forcing our kids to apologize, it's number one, I'd say it's useless because it promotes empty apologies. Number two, I'd say it's unnecessary because there are better ways. But ultimately, why is the child apologizing when it's under duress, where it's coerced apology? They're apologizing because they want to escape punishment. That's really it. It's an extrinsically motivated apology.
And goes back to my conversation around this desire and need to people please.
Yeah. But you know what they're not developing? They're not actually developing the empathy that we want them to develop, mainly because of a lack of cognitive capacity, but also because it's now being forced. They don't actually feel sorry.
But on top of that, I'm sorry I'm cutting in, but on top of that, they don't feel seen, heard or valued either. Because if you're enforcing me to say sorry, you don't see the hurt. You don't see what's happened to me. You don't understand what I'm going through.
Yeah.
All you see is that I've done something and it's hurt that person, but you didn't see what happened that led me to that, and therefore I feel invisible.
You said it before. It makes a victim of the person who is the perpetrator.
Yeah.
Big problem there. Ultimately, when we do that, it stops them recognizing how their actions are affecting others because now our actions are affecting them. And it stops them from repairing. You see, effective repair, true repair, making amends is an active process, and it works best when we're in that deeper end of the motivation continuum. I think it's worth unpacking briefly why kids don't want to apologize. What's your take on that?
If I'm apologizing for something, then I have to admit that I'm wrong. And if I admit that I'm wrong, then in my mind, I'm not a good person.
Right. What I'm hearing you say is an apology comes down to, in some ways, a level of personal pride. For me to apologize means I have to acknowledge that in that moment, I was not at my best. I was not who I should be.
Yeah. And as a 7-year-old, I'm not thinking that, right?
Right.
What I'm thinking is I'm trying so hard to be a good person and now I'm getting in trouble for it. And that clearly means I'm not a good person.
I have 3 other reasons on top of your very, very clear and important reason. Number 1, I'm still frustrated at the other person.
Yep.
I'm just not ready to apologize to them. They offended me, they upset me, or whatever it is. I'm still upset about the thing. Number 2, I might be embarrassed. Let's say I broke a window or I said the wrong thing to somebody and it got blurted out, or somebody took a screenshot of something that they weren't supposed to take. I'm embarrassed about that. And number 3, I'm scared. What happens if I apologize? There's some research that shows that adults really, really worry about apologizing as well because, number 1, they're worried about the ramifications, and number 2, they find it stressful because they feel like it's going to be humiliating. Also, that research shows that when they apologize, it's not nearly as stressful or humiliating as they thought it would be, and they get the relief of the apology. But of course, the apology has to be meant.
And if you round all of that out, for me, it comes back to this. We don't like to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's right.
All of this is about being uncomfortable and getting used to the feeling of being uncomfortable.
Which is kind of an argument for why you could get your kids to apologize, right? Because that discomfort, it helps them to tolerate the discomfort and also to feel the relief. But I mean, being forgiven feels good, assuming you do get forgiveness. Sometimes the apology doesn't land quite the way we want it to. The argument for apologizing is forgiveness is nice. Kids can learn that frustration tolerance and that discomfort tolerance, and they also do learn to take responsibility. Although, well, that's kind of an old school argument. I would argue against it. I don't think they learn responsibility. I think they learn to be frightened of us. But we do need to wrap this up. What are we supposed to do when the kids do the wrong thing? Must they apologize? Do we not do anything at all? Do we give it space? How do we figure this out?
I think what's really important is that as we allow our children the autonomy to work through these challenges, we help them to recognize that sometimes time is needed and that in that space of time, the person who's been hurt is able to let go of their anger and their hurt, and the person who's done the hurt is able to recognize the part that they played in that hurt. And when we enforce it, we actually cut the learning process off. We don't give either person time to actually work through that in a positive way. But it requires a fair bit of scaffolding, especially in those early years.
We've got to be there to support them, right? So 2 things from me. Number 1, we've got to model it. We've got to actually show our kids how to sincerely apologize when we get it wrong, either with one another or with the kids themselves. A sincere apology has 4 components. Number 1, I'm sorry. Number 2, because. That's where we say, because I did this to you.
So it's not because you did this, which made me do this.
No. In fact, one of my sisters got really cranky at one of our kids one time. And then she realized she'd done the wrong thing and she apologized. And she said, I'm sorry I got mad at you, but if you hadn't done that, it wouldn't have happened. And I'm like, no, that's not quite an apology. No one was forcing it. At least she said sorry, but it was an ugly apology. So number 1, I'm sorry. Number 2, because I did this. Number 3, and it made you feel that. In other words, I have reflected and can see how my actions affected you. And then the 4th and most important thing, will you forgive me? Oh gosh, they're important words. That's how you know someone's really sincere, when they are so willing to be humbled that they ask you to forgive them. They put the power of the relationship in your hands. That is a profoundly good apology.
Over the years, we have used this structure and process with our kids as we've made mistakes as parents. And there's just something so beautiful when our kids recognize the part they've played in a difficult situation. And they come and ask those words, will you forgive me? I love that they're able to, through their own cognition and introspection, recognize that they've done something that has ruptured a relationship and their desire is to reconnect and make that right. But it takes them seeing us be humble. This is what it comes down to. The word's humble, right? It's letting go of our pride. It's letting go of the acknowledgement that we're going to get it right all the time, and getting down to their level and saying, I'm really sorry. I got it wrong today and I know it made you feel sad.
Will you forgive me?
Will you forgive me?
We could do with those 4 words a lot more in the world right now. So that's number one. Where there's been a rupture, there has to be repair. And when we model it, especially with that framework, it makes a big difference. The second thing, and you've emphasized this, but I really want to put a great big red mark under this so that everyone remembers it, giving kids the opportunity to reflect on their actions with our gentle support and involvement leads to much better apologies, because our children do want good relationships with those around them.
And much better learning.
Yeah. Sorry if we went over time, but we hope we've been helpful here. Should you force your kids to apologise? The research is ambiguous. I say no, but they do need to learn to apologise. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. We really hope this has been a helpful conversation for you in your home. If you would like more information about making your family happier, please check out happyfamilies.com.au.